Hey, everybody. So before I get started with this first episode of this show, I want to kind of talk about why I'm even doing this. I'm a pretty big Buffalo sports fan, but I don't live in Buffalo. And I've been really struggling to find like audio content I can listen to in between Sabres games, right? Like if you're a Bills fan, there's a lot of really great podcasts and YouTube videos out there where you can get that that analysis and that discussion, previews of upcoming games, discussions with people who report for other teams. I'm just struggling finding that for the Sabres. So here's the deal. I'm going to start my own with the idea that I don't really have time to do this. I don't really have time to do this after every game and before every game. And I certainly don't have time to watch all 82 games because I mostly work at night. And I'm not a hockey guy by trade. I work in the performing arts. But I've been a Buffalo Sabres fan my entire life. I follow them pretty closely. I love numbers. I like thinking about things analytically and discussing things and hearing about things from an analytical perspective. And I'm just struggling to find that content on the internet right now about the Buffalo Sabres. That's the purpose of this podcast / YouTube video. I want to provide this content for people with the idea that hopefully someone will be listening to this who knows more about hockey than me. And will be like, hey, this guy's like fine, but he's not great. Like that would be amazing. I would love for you to start your own show because I would probably listen to it. So if you listen to this and you think it's garbage, feel free to leave a comment. But more importantly, start your own show. That's probably what I'm going to say to any negative comment about this, if I even get those, is start your own show. Start your own show. I will probably listen to it. All right. So here's the deal. The Sabres started the season super hot. And the question we were all asking is, are the Sabres really this good? And a lot of people were saying, yeah, they are. And I was very cautious about this for a couple of reasons. And now the Sabres have kind of been crashing hard. And I think a lot of what people are asking is, wait, is this just the same crappy Sabres team that we've been suffering through for pretty much the last decade? Like, do they really suck this bad? And I think I'm a little cautious about that extreme as well. So let's talk about this. So before the season started, I predicted that the Sabres would be maybe fifth in the division or sixth, right? I thought that they would definitely do better than the Senators and the Red Wings. And I just didn't see how Boston would not be in first place. And Toronto looked so good, and the Lightning looked so good. And Florida and Montreal, I had some questions about. So I didn't know exactly where to put the Sabres, but I thought either fifth or sixth in the division and probably outside of a wild card possibility. And that's pretty much where they are now. They're in sixth place, and they're a game out of fifth place with one fewer games played than the fifth place team, which is the Toronto Maple Leafs, who we're about to have a home and home against at the end of this week. So I'm not like freaking out right now. This is pretty much what I thought was going to happen. Because the team is improved since last season. We added 2 forwards. We added Marcus Johansson and Jimmy Vesey. And we also are calling up Victor Olofsson, who has proven he's definitely NHL ready. And this is fine, right? This is good. This is an improvement because players like Tage Thompson wasn't ready for the NHL. So he's going to have an opportunity now to develop in Rochester. Of course, Patrick Berglund, we all know what happened to him last year. So we needed at least 2 NHL like mid-level forwards, and it looked like we were going to get those in VC and Johansson. We also boosted our blue line pretty well with Yoki Hairu and Colin Miller, both of whom were looking like they were going to be an upgrade. And the idea was that guys like Marco Scandella, or maybe even Rasmus Dahlin, maybe even Zach Bogosian, right, could maybe be traded or something, right? Because right now we have 7 defensemen, like starting defensemen. So that was pretty good, right? We still had Vladimir Sobotka, who, is on a lot of people's shit list for, I think, good reason. We still kind of have this, goalie tandem where neither one of the goalies is neither one of the goalies is standing out as like, this is the starter. This is an NHL starting goaltender. But, it looks like an improved team. So I'm still talking about before the season. It looked like it was going to be a better team, but not a great team. Because these guys, like, Jimmy Vesey's not Brad Marchand or David Pasternak or Austin Matthews or Mitch Marner, right? And Marcus Johansson's not like these guys, or like Nikita Kucherov, right? Or Alexander Barkov or Jonathan Huberdeau or Patrice Bergeron, right? Like, these are not X-factor players. These are not players that are going to score a point a game and also bring a really physical presence to the ice, right? So at the beginning of the season, I don't think anyone was thinking like, oh man, we have Jimmy Vesey. We are going to win 10 Stanley Cups this year, right? But we all kind of felt that the team looked better on paper. It's almost like, how could it not look better on paper? And so that was kind of the attitude before the season. Then the season started, and the Buffalo Sabres just won all these games. And they didn't win them like they did last year, where, it was kind of like a slop fest, or went to the shootout or whatever. They won these games fairly convincingly, right? They looked like a very good team. They were playing a focused game that was simplified. It was very exciting and very fun to watch. But as we got to, 10 wins and 11 wins, people started talking about this team like it was actually like the best team in the NHL and not just an improved team off to a hot start. And I got very, very cautious about thinking that because I look at the numbers and the numbers were very troubling. There were two parts during that hot start to the season. There were two statistics that kept coming back, and it was like, these are not sustainable. The first one was the save percentage of these goalies. Linus Ullmark and Carter Hutton are both fine goaltenders. They are probably ultimately like two very good backup goaltenders, right? And they were putting up save percentages over 5 or 6 games of like 950 and 960. It was ridiculous. For reference, 930 was the type of save percentages that Dominic Hasek was having in the mid 90s. 930 is kind of like that elite level, like the beginning of the elite level. Like if you're a baseball statistics person, a save percentage of 930 is like a batting average of 300 or like an OPS of 1,000, right? And these guys were putting up numbers of like 970, 960, right, over the course of several games. That was completely unsustainable. Even for a top flight goaltender, those numbers were unsustainable. And what has happened since then? Well, Carter Hutton has crashed in terms of these numbers. He's now got a 903 save percentage, which is below average, and a 2.91 goals against average. And those are not numbers that are anything worth celebrating. Linus Ullmark as well. His save percentage is down to 915, which is just a little bit above average, and he has the exact same goals against average of 2.91. So I'm glad I wasn't riding high on the Sabres over those first 10 or 12 games or whatever, because I saw these numbers and I was like, man, this is not sustainable. And on the other end, the Sabres were not putting pucks on the net. On any puck control metric, they were average or below average. Their Corsi number was around a 47 or 48%, or Corsi for percentage, and that's not a number that a team can sustain an elite record with. So as good as the Sabres did look during their hot start, I think anyone who follows the numbers was cautious. And then watching the games, I felt the same way. Like some of those games were won because Carter Hutton was looking like Dominic Hasek, like making saves that were ridiculous and acrobatic, right? I just remember watching this like, oh man, this is going to be so good for just a few games and then we're going to get back to normal. And it's sad that after years, I just assume that the Sabres are going to be mediocre or worse. So that kind of brings us to the question at the heart of this episode. Is this just another bad Sabres season? where we get off to a hot start or we have a hot streak or there are these flashes of brilliance and then just months of mediocre or substandard or garbage play. And I really don't know the answer to that question. I think we're going to see in the next few games what the team has in it. They've worked themselves down from first place to a very middling record. They have a game tonight against the Calgary Flames, who are another team with a record that is just right in the middle. And then there are 2 games at the end of the week, back-to-back against the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are going to be without one of their best players. Mitch Marner is out indefinitely with an injury. So if the Sabres win against Calgary, and if they split the home and home against the Toronto Maple Leafs, my prediction will be that this will be a fine season. Maybe they'll wind up with something like 80 or 85 points at the end of the season. Not enough to make a wild card, but definitely in a position to become a much better team in the next offseason and kind of like with that momentum, that steady momentum. If they lose to the Flames and then lose both games to the Maple Leafs, I'm going to have a hard time predicting anything other than another trash season, another garbage, unwatchable season. And if they win all 3 games, if they beat the Maple Leafs twice and they win against the Flames, I'm going to be riding a little bit high. And I'm going to be thinking, okay, so we just beat the Leafs twice. That's going to give us an edge over them in the division standings, which might actually put them in a position, to eke out a wild card spot. I'm not totally sure about this, but that's where I am. This is what I need to see. Number 1, I need to see more scoring from other players. And the Sabres are actually now, at this point in the season, a little bit above average there as well. The Sabres have 47 goals scored to 43 goals against. So we're looking at a team that is sitting at the middle now in terms of offensive statistics. Okay, we're sitting in the middle. We're an average team. We are a team that should be around 5th place in their division, which is basically we're 6th, but we're basically hanging in that middle zone. What do I think the Sabres need to work on? Well, a couple things. Number 1, the goaltending has gone down in quality, and I don't know what they can do about that. We'll have to see over the next couple games, if Carter Hutton or Linus Ullmark are looking better. Chances are Linus Ullmark will start looking better than Carter Hutton, and if that happens, I think Linus Ullmark is just the starter. Carter Hutton has had some amazing games, and he's so streaky though, and so when he's on, and when he's off, that I think he's more of a liability if we're treating him as the starter. Instead we should give him, maybe a third of the games or a quarter of the games. And then, honestly, on defense, we just need to not give the puck up so much. At least once or twice a period, you see a Buffalo Sabres player, a lot of times a defenseman, a lot of times it's Rasmus Dahlin, who is still in his teens, right? He's still a teenager. He's a very young person. Give up the puck between the blue lines, and that just has to stop happening. That has to stop happening. They have to be better about the transitions. And finally, and maybe more importantly than any of this, the down roster players have to start producing points. At the beginning of the season, there was a little bit of time. At the beginning of the season, there was a little bit of time where it looked like there was going to be a nice slope when you chart out every player's points per game, or every player's total points, we'll say, right? Where Jack Eichel and maybe Jeff Skinner would be up at the top, somewhere around 1 point a game, and there'd be a nice slope down from there. And that has just not been the case. Jack Eichel has 14 goals for 30 points in 24 games. That's 1.25 points a game. That's very good. That's what you want from your elite center, your elite forward. Sam Reinhart has 19 points in 24 games, which include 9 goals and 10 assists, for 0.79 points per game. Victor Olofsson has 18 points over 24 games for 0.75 points a game. Rasmus Dahlin has 16 points over 24 games for 0.67 points a game. And then, Jeff Skinner has 14 points in the 24 games for 0.58. And then from there, it kind of does just drop off. And remember, Victor Olofsson, too, has 8 goals, but I think 6 of those were in the first 6 or 7 games, right? He got off to that incredible start. So he now only has 8 goals. So he has not been that factor that it looked like he was going to be. So it's 30, 19, 18, 16, 14, 10. So goals scored total, it's Jack Eichel with 14, then Jeff Skinner with 9, Sam Reinhart with 9, Victor Olofsson with 8, again, 6 of which happened in the first 7 or 8 games or whatever. And then it just crashes from there. Then you got Marcus Johansson, who has 4 goals in his 17 games. Then it's Zemgus Girgensons. The 6th highest scoring Sabre is Zemgus Girgensons. And 2 of his 3 goals came in one game. They came Sunday against Florida. So when your 6th ranked scorer has 3 goals in 24 games, that is a problem. That is a problem. And that needs to change. And I don't know how that's going to change. I think part of it is Jimmy Vesey is not the answer, man. Jimmy Vesey's played 21 games. Dude's got 4 points total, 1 goal in 21 games. And no one thought that Vesey was going to be an elite scorer, but he's definitely, for total points, last season he had 28. We're a third of the way through this season. He has 4. So he's on track to be producing at less than half the rate he was producing last year. That's just not it. So that's where we are. We have a team that got off to a hot start and has since cooled off significantly and is now sitting right in the middle of the league. We need more production from our down roster players. We need better puck control from our young defensemen. And we need to figure out the goaltending situation. We need to give, Ullmark probably more starts, and we need to give him the opportunity to get into a rhythm. And that is what I think. So that's the very first episode of this show. If you like this, please leave a comment. And if you don't like this, start your own show. Because I definitely wish that I could do this. Oh, I haven't even previewed the game. Haven't even previewed tonight's game. Well, you know what? We'll just say they're playing the Flames. The Flames are also in the middle of their situation, right? So it's 2 mediocre teams tonight. Let's see what happens. Okay. Anyway, if you like Buffalo Sabres audio content and you're like, wow, I wish there was more of it, and you know a lot about hockey, you should start one. And if you were like, oh, this guy's really smart, he knows a lot about hockey, I want to listen to this guy, let me know, because I will probably only do this after and before every game if there's enough interest generated. Right? I'll do a few of these on my own time, and we'll see what happens. All right, everyone, go Sabres.